Hi everyone, and welcome to this Conversations in Careers session. Today I'm joined by Ann Dugdale. So Ann works for her own consultancy company called Taylor's Hill, and she's going to be here today to tell us a little bit how she got to the position where she is, and what she learned along the way, challenges she faced, and if she's got any tips on how to get to where she was. So Ann, can you tell us a little bit about your current position and how you got there?
So I'm currently running my own consultancy. I decided to have a go at doing a bit of consulting when I was made redundant from a company called Mundi Pharma, based on the Cambridge Science Park, back in March last year, actually the very week before lockdown. So that was interesting. They were having a major restructure and I was made redundant, and I was pretty senior in the company, and I figured that I probably wouldn't be able to find another job that I really wanted to do very quickly, because there probably wouldn't be that many jobs at that level around. And I equally didn't want to sit around twiddling my thumbs doing nothing. As it turned out, I particularly didn't want to sit around in lockdown twiddling my thumbs doing nothing.
Of course.
So I decided to have a go and reached out to some of my contacts and decided to have a go at doing a bit of consulting. So that's what I've been doing for the last 9-10 months, doing some training for a few companies, doing a couple of roles in interim management. I'm doing some work for an Australian company, doing some scouting of business opportunities for them. So I've actually ended up being pretty busy.
Yeah, I was going to say, you sound busy.
Yeah, no, it's been great actually, and I've really enjoyed it, and I've really appreciated the opportunity to work for some different companies, which has been great. But I mean, from a complete career position, point of view, how did I get here? Well, it's a long story. I've been in the industry since 1990. So kind of 25 years in the industry. Working in various companies, but I moved into the industry in a marketing role, a junior marketing role, and worked my way up through sales and marketing roles into a business development role, did a few years in business development, and ultimately ended up the last 11 years with Mundi Pharma, heading up their alliance management department out of their Cambridge office. Basically looking after, once we signed deals, looking after those relationships and those deals after they've been signed. So that's kind of my history in the pharmaceutical industry. But I had, of course, 10 years or so working before I was in the industry. And I actually did a degree in modern languages. So you might wonder, how on earth did I end up in the pharmaceutical industry? Because you would automatically expect that somebody coming into the pharmaceutical industry would have a degree in life sciences of some sort. But I didn't. I had a degree in modern languages, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I did a year's business studies after university. And that then got me thinking that I found marketing quite interesting, and I would look around for some marketing opportunities. I ended up doing a few years in FMCG marketing, and then subsequently moved into a job as an account director at an advertising agency for a few years. And then the recession hit, and I was facing the prospect of being made redundant, because various people around me were being made redundant, and it was just a really unpleasant environment to be in. And I thought, I don't like this, I need to get out. And I was talking to friends, and some people suggested to me that given where I lived, which was in the sort of Hertfordshire A1 corridor, where there were a number of pharmaceutical companies at the time, that I should have a look at the healthcare industry. And I thought, well, I never even considered the healthcare industry, knew nothing about it at all, but I would have a look because it seemed pretty recession proof on the basis that people are always ill. So that's what I did. And I had two criteria: one, to find a job in a fairly recession proof industry, and secondly, to find a job that was close to home. And I managed to find a job that was about 10 minutes walk from my front door in the pharmaceutical industry. I took a big jump down in salary to make that move, but for me, it was really worth it. And I really haven't looked back since. And it was the best move I think I've ever made in my career, but a complete change to what I had done before.
That's amazing. So when you career shifted into your position into the pharmaceutical industry, did you feel at all worried that because you didn't have that science background that you'd struggle at any stage at all?
I think I was extremely naive at the time.
Yeah.
Of course, I didn't think I would struggle. I thought there would be no problem at all. But I had no idea what I was getting into. But in actual fact, what I found was once I got into the company, whilst I knew a lot of stuff about marketing, what I didn't understand was the industry that I'd moved into. And there were challenges, you know, I wouldn't pretend that it was plain sailing without a pharmaceutical degree, because I sat in meetings for the first 6 months of my life in the pharmaceutical industry, not understanding the half of what people were talking about. So I've had to learn, and I've had to make an effort to understand and learn things. But, you know, it's been worth it, and I don't feel it's held me back in my career. I guess staying on the business side of things as opposed to trying, you know, I have to be realistic, I couldn't have got into science related roles in the industry because I don't have that knowledge. But, you know, I think people should not be afraid of the pharmaceutical industry just because they don't have a science degree.
I think you make a great point.
I was naive, but you can find a way to make it work, and you can learn things along the way, which is part of the fun, you know. Definitely. I love it when there's a new therapeutic area to look at, and off I go and I research it on the internet. I mean, thank God for the internet, you can learn so much quickly, and it's constantly new stuff to learn and really interesting.
Of course. I think you make a great point about not having to worry about having a non-science background, but also for people recruiting, not to worry so much about recruiting somebody with a science background. You can actually recruit this talent from elsewhere. So I think, that's brilliant. So,
yes, and I must say on my CV, I don't put that my degree is in modern languages. I just put that I've got a degree.
Really?
Leave it for them to find out. People assume.
Yeah.
There's so often jobs that I think, well, those wouldn't need us. You could do that job without a science degree. So, you know, jobs in, you know, a whole raft of business areas, you can do without a science degree. And, you know, they still ask for a science-related subject degree. And I would question whether that's really necessary.
Absolutely. So, going back to your current position, you started your company as we went into a pandemic. That must have been quite a challenge.
I spent a month kind of thinking about it because I left my last company at the end of March, and I actually started my consultancy company at the beginning of May. Once I'd actually got somebody who said, oh, actually, you could help us with this little project. So I'd spend a month kind of thinking, what shall I do? Would it be the right thing to do? And I guess I was lucky in that I had a good redundancy package. So I'd got some financial security. I could afford to take a punt at it. And my plan was to do it for the rest of the 2020 calendar year, because I knew I could survive on my redundancy package for that period of time without a problem. Do it for that period of time and see how it went, and see how I felt about it, and then go from there. So I mean, was it challenging? I suppose it was. I mean, I don't know, I haven't done it outside of lockdown.
I was going to say, it must just
I don't know what it would be like differently. I mean, the one thing I think that I do when I think back to what life was like pre-lockdown and everything, you know, I was involved in a number of industry organizations where there were networking events and what have you. And without a doubt, if you go to one of those sorts of events, it's much easier just to chat to people and, you know, find out what's going on with their company and whether there's anything they need any help with, you know. So I imagine if I had been able to do that, that might have been easier. Instead of which I had to consciously seek out individuals that I knew and talk to them or email them or whatever. But it worked fine. You know, I certainly can't complain. It's been a very interesting year.
Amazing. So can you tell us a little bit about maybe day to day, what it is, your typical kind of day to day in your role?
In the consulting, in my consulting work? Well, I mean, people always say no 2 days are the same, but they really are. If you've got more than one client, then they really aren't. And I think one of the nice things about consulting is that you are your own boss. So, you know, you can choose to do your work within reason and within, you know, the scope of what your client wants from you. You can choose to do the work at whatever time works for you. So I do work some pretty weird and wacky hours sometimes. You know, I might choose not to work in the afternoon and go off and do something else. I've got horses, so I go off and ride when the weather's nice, and then I work when it's dark because I can't ride my horses when it's dark. But you know, it very much depends on what you're actually doing for a client as to what each day looks like.
Interesting. That's nice, I guess, that you've got that flexibility there then.
It is a nice, yeah, it is nice. I mean, the flip side is that you don't have any guaranteed income, which you have with employment, which is also, you know, which is a nice thing about employment. And I think really, you know, unless you work for a consulting company as an employee, in which case you're an employee anyway, you really need to have got to a pretty senior place in your career before you can think about doing some consulting.
Wow. So throughout your career and your journey, what kind of challenges have you faced along the way?
Well, you know, as I said before, I think, you know, not having a science degree can be a challenge, but I definitely don't think it should be seen as an obstacle when it comes to the pharmaceutical industry. I spoke about the recession that hit the advertising industry, the advertising agency earlier in my career. That was definitely a challenge, but you know, it changed my life. I would never have probably ended up in the pharmaceutical industry if it hadn't been for that particular set of circumstances. And then again, most recently, being made redundant, you know, when I was working for a company that I had never even considered leaving. I enjoyed my job, I enjoyed the company, I had great colleagues, and I really enjoyed what we were doing. So being made redundant after 11 years at that company was quite a shock. You know, I'm not going to pretend. So that was a real challenge, but you know, you have to allow those kinds of situations to kind of work their way through your system, I think, and take them as an opportunity to think about what you might do next. And are you going to do more of the same, or are you going to take an opportunity maybe to have a career change or do something different? I mean, I can't say that I've had a significant career change because I'm still doing a lot of the things that I did when I was employed. But you know, I do know plenty of people who've been made redundant who have taken it as an opportunity to have a complete career change and retrain in something totally different.
Absolutely.
So you know, those have been the sort of big challenges I think that I've faced in my career.
Brilliant. So based on those experiences, can you give me maybe 3 key things that you have learned or that you are grateful for learning throughout them?
Well, you know, 2 of the things that I'm most grateful for learning actually come from some amazing bosses that I've worked for. My very first boss was absolutely brilliant and really set a very high bar for any future bosses. And the one thing he taught me, which has stood me in such good stead in the pharmaceutical industry, coming from a modern languages background rather than a science background, is it's okay not to know the answer. You know, that is okay. Be honest about it and then go away and find out the answer. You know, and go back to whoever was asking the question. Found it out. But don't be afraid to say, I'm really sorry, I actually don't know the answer to that, but I'll find out and I'll come back to you. So that stood me in great stead. And when I sat in meetings in my early days in the pharmaceutical industry and not understood at all what people were talking about, I've then gone away and researched what it was that they were talking about to try and understand it. And
Yeah.
that way you build knowledge and you build understanding, and over time people go, do you really not have a science degree? So, you know, that was one great thing.
Yeah.
A wonderful boss that I had when I was working in marketing and my early days in business development said to me, don't bring me problems, bring me solutions. And that was an absolutely fantastic thing that has stayed with me forever, and that I've shared with people who have worked for me. You know, if you're facing a problem and a challenge and you're trying to work it out, and you need to go and talk to your boss about it, or you're going to talk to other colleagues about it, have a think about what a solution might be. You might not have the right solution. The solution that you suggest may not be workable, but it's so much better not to just go and talk about it. It's so much better if you can go and say, this is the problem, I think we could do X, Y, Z about it. And your boss or your colleagues might not agree with you. That's okay, but at least you've thought about it, and it shows that you're thinking about it.
Of course.
So that's been a hugely useful piece of learning for me. And I think lastly, I would say, and I've done this all my life, and people have often said to me, oh, have you put your head above the parapet again, Anne? But I've always been interested in learning new things, learning different things. So throughout my career, I've sought to gain experiences in things that I didn't know about. So if there was an opportunity to get involved in a project or try out a different role that I didn't really know about, I would tend to stick my head above the parapet and have a go. And it's taken me, you know, it's taken me in some interesting directions. It's taught me incredible things, and it's given me opportunities to learn things during my career that I probably, if I'd been very rigid about a kind of linear career progression, that I probably wouldn't have done. So I would encourage anybody to have an open, inquiring mind, really, and take every opportunity to learn new things, even if it doesn't seem entirely relevant to the job that you're doing at the time. You just never know where it might take you or what you might learn.
Absolutely. And I know we discussed previously about naturally careers will shift probably between different industries throughout your life. So taking advantage from any learning opportunity, I think is great, and especially where skills are so transferable. I think you make an excellent point. Fantastic. So lastly, do you think you could give me one thing that you would tell your younger self as an early career seeker? What would you kind of tell yourself back in that position, if you could say one thing?
Gosh, I think maybe, you know, don't expect that the first job that you do is going to define the whole of your career until the day you retire. Don't feel that the decision that you've got to make now, just as you're leaving school or university, is what you're going to have to live with for the rest of your life, because it isn't. Careers are not, very often not linear. And if you keep that open and inquiring mind, I think, you know, you find that your career will take you in interesting places. I mean, I've done FMCG, I've worked in an advertising agency, I've worked in a number of roles within the pharmaceutical industry, all on the sort of business side of things, sales, marketing, business development, alliance management, but all different roles. And yeah, I think that would be, you know, that would be my key message would be, you know, the decision you make now, it doesn't have to define your life for the rest of your life. So don't worry if you get it wrong now.